They tore through her bags like she was a criminal. But when she calmly handed over her ID, everything changed. Because the woman they humiliated at that HOA checkpoint, she wasn't just any visitor. She was a decorated army officer, with the power to shut them down, and she did. You ever have one of those moments where you can feel the air change, like a storm's coming, but nobody around you seems to notice? That's how it felt that morning. Sky was calm. Sun barely broke the horizon over our quiet little HOA-controlled community near Red Bluff. I was leaning on my porch rail with a cup of black coffee, watching the dust rise off the gravel drive when I saw her Jeep roll in olive green. Tough as nails without a vote state plates and a bumper sticker that read, "No one gets left behind." She drove with purpose, eyes forward, window cracked just enough to let the breeze roll in. Back seat full of duffel bags. It didn't take much for me to know she wasn't your average traveler, but the HOA didn't see that. Nope. They saw a threat. Her name was Major Elise Hartley. I'd learn that later. But at that moment, to the clipboard warriors at the gate checkpoint, she was just another woman driving into their neighborhood with gear, grit, and a face they didn't recognize. And with that, the HOA's Karen-in-Chief made her move. It started just past 8:30. A.M. The HOA had started manning a so-called security checkpoint at the neighborhood entrance a few months back. It was supposed to be temporary due to some recent break-ins, but it had all the flavor of something more permanent. They had folding tables, traffic cones, radios, and a rotating crew of overly eager security volunteers with more attitude than authority. This morning, Cynthia was in charge, the queen bee herself, HOA president, sunglasses too big for her face, white capris, clipboard in hand, and that permanent scowl like she just smelled bad eggs. Elise pulled up slow, rolled down her window. Calm, respectful. "Morning," she said. "I'm here to visit my uncle, David Miller. He owns lot 47. That's me. By the way, she's my late brother's daughter, Army through and through. Hadn't seen her in 3 years." Cynthia didn't even smile. "Name and reason for visit, please." Elise repeated it, clear and calm. Showed her military ID, not that she needed to, but Cynthia barely looked at it before waving to one of the volunteers. "Secondary screening." I saw the whole thing from my porch and started walking down the gravel road. By the time I got halfway there, I could hear raised voices. They had pulled Elise's Jeep off to the side. 2 of the HOA's volunteers, one of them a wiry guy named Brent, who used to install sprinkler systems, were going through her bags like they were at a border crossing. "I'd appreciate it if you didn't dump my gear on the ground," Elise said, still calm. "Standard protocol," Brent snapped. "If you have nothing to hide, you won't mind." Now, let me tell you something. Elise had been deployed 4 times. She's dealt with roadside checkpoints and places where the dust could kill you and the people smiled as they lied to your face. She knew how to stay composed. But you could see the muscle in her jaw tighten. And then they pulled out her medals case. One of them popped it open like it was a lunchbox. "What's this?" Brent said, squinting at the rows of ribbons and bars. "That's my service record," Elise replied. "You should probably put that down." He didn't. He smirked. Cynthia leaned over. "Do you always travel with so much military equipment?" Elise gave a slight nod. "Ma'am, if you're done violating my privacy, I'd like to go see my uncle now." That's when things took a sharp turn. "I don't like your tone," Cynthia said, "and frankly, I don't know if I believe you. David Miller isn't expecting visitors." She looked back at Brent. "Call it in. We may have a situation." I was about 10 feet away by then. "Karen," I said, loud enough for all of them to hear. "You know damn well, she's my niece, and unless you've got a warrant, you better stop rummaging through her things." Cynthia's face went pale. "She didn't expect me, Mr. Miller." "This doesn't concern you," she snapped. "We're just following HOA security protocol." "You're not law enforcement," I growled. "You're a club with walkie-talkies and inflated egos." That's when it happened. Brent idiot that he has reached for a sidearm he wasn't even licensed to carry. "Sir, I need you to back away," he shouted, his hand hovering over the holster like we were in a Western showdown. And Elise, she didn't flinch. She stepped forward, slow and deliberate, and spoke one word in a tone that could slice steel. "Stand down." Brent froze. Even Cynthia blinked. Because in that instant, something shifted. Elise's bearing, her authority. It came through like thunder in a still sky. She wasn't just visiting family. She wasn't some civilian with a strong voice. She was a commanding officer used to giving orders in high-risk zones. I stepped next to her and said, "Brent, if you so much as twitch, I swear to God, this will turn into a federal case faster than you can say HOA violation." And that's when Elise reached into her breast pocket and calmly, confidently produced a second ID, one with more weight than the last. Department of Defense, Tactical Operations Division. Her full rank displayed in bold. Major Elise Hartley, U.S. Army. Cynthia's lips parted, but no words came. Elise looked her dead in the eyes and said, "Now tell me, Exactly what part of your HOA handbook gives you the right to search a U.S. officer's bags without cause? Silence. Cold, heavy silence. Brent slowly lowered his hand. Cynthia stammered. We were just following. No, Elise interrupted. You were profiling, power tripping, and now you're standing here with a possible illegal search and a weapons violation on your hands. I could see the volunteers backing up. One even pulled out his phone and started texting like he wanted to disappear. Elise didn't yell. She didn't need to. She gathered her metals, repacked her gear, and said, "Unless I'm under arrest, I'll be continuing up this road to visit my family." Cynthia nodded stiffly. You may proceed." And as Elise walked toward me, calm as a summer breeze, I heard her whisper to me, "Still feels like deployment." We both chuckled, but beneath it, there was something heavier, something broken about how, even at home, even here, someone in uniform could be treated like a threat. And this was just the beginning, because what happened next would unravel everything the HOA had tried to hide. You'd think after a federal ID and a near weapons violation, the HOA would have crawled back into their little hidey holes and shut their mouths. But people like Cynthia, they don't fold easy, they double down. And when someone with a badge of real authority comes into their fake little kingdom, they don't just get scared, they get angry. Later that afternoon, I was sitting with Elise on the porch. We were sipping sun tea while her bags rested safe inside the cabin. She hadn't said much about what happened at the checkpoint, just a small shrug, and seen worse, felt worse. That's the soldier in her, tough skin, quiet wounds. But I saw it in her eyes, that frustration, not from the search itself, but from being treated like a threat in her own damn country. After all she'd done for it. That's when the cruiser pulled up. Sheriff Joe Dunham. Local level-headed, knows everyone and everything in 3 counties. He stepped out, hat in hand, and gave me a look that said, something stirred the nest. Elise Hartley, he asked, politely, just stood, calm as ever. Yes, sir. We got a call about a confrontation at the HOA checkpoint. A firearm, unauthorized search, possible impersonation of law enforcement. Mind telling me your side? She handed him her DOD credentials. Joe didn't blink, just took a breath and said, well, damn. That clears up half the confusion. I stood beside her. Joe, they searched her gear without cause. They mishandled military property, threatened her, and one of them went for a sidearm like he was playing cowboy. The sheriff nodded. I figured something didn't add up. We've had a few reports about that so-called security patrol pulling stunts, but this crosses a line. Turns out, this wasn't the first time the HOA had overstepped. Sheriff Joe had a whole file of complaints from residents and guests being stopped, questioned, even turned away at the checkpoint. None of it legal. Cynthia and her board had taken neighborhood safety and turned it into a private authority. Fantasy. But messing with a U.S. Army officer, that was a mistake too big to bury. Joe asked Elise if she wanted to file formal charges. At first, she hesitated. I'm not here to cause trouble, she said. I just wanted to visit my uncle and enjoy some peace and quiet. But I saw something shift in her, not anger, not revenge, just resolve. She turned to Joe and said, if they'll try this with me, they'll try it with someone else who can't defend themselves. File the report. Let's do it right. What happened next set off a chain reaction like dynamite in dry brush. Within 24 hours, Brent, the fake security guard who reached for his sidearm, was served a cease and desist by the sheriff's office and referred for weapons handling violations. His little chest holster was confiscated. Cynthia received a legal notice that the HOA checkpoint had violated both Fourth Amendment protections and local jurisdiction laws. Elise's report triggered an internal review from the state's military oversight office. Why? Because any unlawful search of military personnel is considered a serious breach, even off base. The best part, Sheriff Joe posted a public notice that the checkpoint would be dismantled by week's end. No more folding tables, no more cones, no more HOA ego parades. But the poetic justice didn't end there. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of hammers and wood being tossed into the back of a trailer. The checkpoint booth was being disassembled, piece by piece, under order of the county and Elise. She stood across the road, arms folded, watching it all like a soldier watching an enemy retreat. One of the HOA board members, not Cynthia, mind you, but one of the more decent ones, came over sheepishly. Major Hartley, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I didn't know it had gotten that bad. She looked at him and said, it's never about the title. It's about how you treat people. He nodded and walked away. Now here's where things got a little funny. Later that week, the HOA held an emergency board meeting. I didn't plan to go, but Elise, she asked me to tag along. We walked into the town hall room where Cynthia and her usual gang of clipboard warriors sat at the head of the table. The chairs were packed with homeowners, some curious, some angry, some just ready to see Cynthia get humbled. Elise stood calmly when they opened the floor. She didn't raise her voice, didn't wave her badge, just told the full story, start to finish. The crowd went quiet as she spoke about being searched without cause. about the disrespect to her military service, and how close things had come to a full-on confrontation. Could hear a pin drop, then she closed with this. You don't have to wear a uniform to deserve respect, and you don't need power to do the right thing. But if you abuse either, someone will stand up to you. I'm just sorry it had to be me. Boom. You'd think she dropped a mic. Cynthia tried to recover, mumbling something about community protocols and concern for safety. But the room wasn't having it. By the end of that meeting, a motion was filed to remove Cynthia as HOA president, effective immediately. The vote unanimous. A week later, Elise and I sat by the lake, fishing rods in hand. Peaceful silence between us. You sure you don't want to stay longer? I asked. She smiled. Tempting, but I've got work to get back to. My unit's deploying again in a few months. Until then, I've got recruits to train. Bet none of them try to search your bags, I said, smirking. She laughed. They wouldn't dare. Before she left, she walked down the road where the checkpoint used to be. All that was left was gravel and a faded rectangle where the folding table once sat. She knelt down, ran her hand through the dirt, and whispered something only she could hear. Maybe it was for her fellow soldiers. Maybe for those who never came home. Or maybe for herself, a reminder that justice doesn't wear a uniform. Asterisk. Cynthia was replaced by a more balanced, respectful president. The checkpoint never returned. Elise visited again, a few months later. No ID needed. No bags checked. Just a smile and a welcome home. In that little moment when an officer whispered, "Stand down," it reminded all of us that sometimes the strongest power isn't in how loud you shout, but how steady you stand. Asterisk. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around. I've got more wild HOA tales coming your way. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next HOA meltdown.